welcome back to another episode of Crinkles Corner. Thank you guys so much for tuning back in. So tonight's episode has a little bit of spookiness to it, mystery. It also touches on the topic of suicide. So if that's a topic that you're not really comfortable listening to or hearing about, feel free to sit this one out and join us for the next one. Let's get into it. There's a mountain in Japan called Mount Fujisan, or Mount Fuji, not to be confused with Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is a beautiful mountain, but what some people don't know is what's at the bottom of the mountain. At the bottom of Mount Fuji lies this beautiful forest. Locals call it Aokighara Jukai. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Aokighara Jukai means the sea of trees. From above, this forest is green and lush and so beautiful. It's a place that I would like to go on a hike on, but it's not like that at all. In Japan, locals have a name for this particular forest. They call it the forest of no return. In this forest, people don't just come here to go on a beautiful scenic hike. Some go to this forest to disappear forever, to get rid of burdens and debts and problems that they might be going through that they feel have no end. The forest grabs a hold of them. This place feels almost like a weighted blanket. Even the trees remember you. Taking a single step inside this forest, the whole vibe changes. The atmosphere changes. It's no longer beautiful. The wind dies. The silence is loud. And you get this feeling of being watched. Goosebumps grow on your arms and your body. Shivers run through you. In this forest, the trees are so thick. They block the sun rays from bringing life into this forest. It's dark and definitely gives off those creepy vibes. Aokighara Jukai has been feeding us ghost stories for centuries. Once you step inside, you lose logical thought, lose sense of direction, and you start to almost question life itself. Compasses don't work. They spin crazy. And your phone stops working altogether. The battery just dies. The worst part, though, are the voices. Many that go into the forest have claimed that they've heard these strange voices and whispers calling your name deep within the forest. When you look around to see who's calling, there's no one there, but you feel the presence of something lurking near you. Then there are the figures, strangers waving on the path. Some saying, "I'm lost too. Let's walk together." Now, if I was lost in this forest and someone said, "I'm lost too, let's go together," I would definitely go with them. But those who did follow these strange figures never walked out of this forest again. Days later, they were found. Their faces frozen in terror. Skin is pale and turning bluish, and their eyes wide, as if they have seen something that wasn't from this world. Even the search teams would say their expressions didn't look like they passed in a peaceful way, but instead they passed in terror, in fear, in horror. A survivor of the forest claimed that he saw with his own eyes a man dressed in all white was walking ahead of him, offering to guide him out of the forest. As he was following this man, the strange thing is he didn't hear footsteps hitting the ground, because there's leaves on the ground and they kind of make a crisp noise whenever you step on them. There was none of that. The whole time it was just silence. Then, in a blink of an eye, the man just vanished. The figure he was following vanishes, disappeared into thin air. The survivor realized as he looked around that he was in a part of the forest he had never seen before. Another survivor who was pulled out of the forest kept muttering. He was saying they were calling his name in the forest, pulling him deeper and deeper in. And the more you go into this forest, it feels like a maze with no exit. Once you're lost, you don't just lose your way. You lose your mind, you lose yourself. There was a university student in Japan who talks about visiting the forest out of curiosity and nothing more. But the moment he stepped into the forest, he realized he was ignoring his gut feeling and knew he was making a mistake. The university student was a horror blogger. He ran this website with his college friend, and they would write these ghost stories, urban legends, and haunted houses. The viewers wanted more, and they began losing their viewers. That's when one of the students was like, what if we actually went to some of these haunted places ourselves? Maybe it could be fun. So the two university students did their research, and they were fascinated by the forest. Now, in Japanese culture, they say when someone dies with unbearable regret, their spirit lingers and they become restless, bound to the place of their death. The two university students, with all the information they got from their research, decided to go check it out to see for themselves. So the students packed what they needed, camera, recorders, and flashlights, and headed to Mount Fuji. When they arrived at the entrance of the forest, the fog was thick. The air was still. Their hearts were pounding. And with that, they entered the forest of no return. As they're making their way into the forest, they hear, it was a voice, not their imagination. It was clear and it sounded very close to them. They froze in their steps and looked at each other, like making sure they both heard the same thing. They would shine their flashlights all around to see if there was someone there, but nothing or no one was there. As they proceeded their hike, they hear another whisper, "Let's go together." They pressed play immediately on their recorder. Moments later, they stopped to replay the recording, and there it was, so clear. "Let's go together." They got excited because now they had proof to post on their vlog for their viewers. They're gonna blow up, they thought. They were overwhelmed with fear, but also excitement. But this excitement did not last long, because then another voice was heard, and it was right there next to them. "I'm here." They froze and saw something white, a figure standing in between the trees. When they pointed their flashlights towards it, it was gone. One of the university students was like, "Let's go deeper." What they didn't realize is that every step deeper into this forest, it wasn't just them documenting the forest. It was also the forest documenting them. It wasn't just a vlog anymore. It was a record of their walk towards death. Then they began to smell this odd smell. It smelled like something was decaying. They would shine their flashlights in the distance, and there, an old rope hanging from a tree. At the end of the rope, a body, decaying, barely recognizable. They would shine their light in another direction, and another body, and another, all over, bodies hanging, decaying from trees. They had to keep filming so the people could know the truth about this forest, but their eyes were wide and their hands were shaky. They were scared. One of the university students said, "Let's just head back." But the other wanted to focus on recording. "We can't. Not right now. This is our chance," he said, "to prove it They continued forward. Suddenly, this strong, aggressive voice yelled, "We're here!" And it sounded like it was coming from right next to them, right in their ears. So loud, so strong that they both fell to the ground, dropping their flashlights, their recorders, the cameras. They passed out and went unconscious. And who knows how long they were laying there. In the distance, you hear more voices. "Is anyone there?" This time, it was a voice of relief. It was a group of volunteer rescuers. The two students were pulled out of the forest by the rescuers, their faces pale, their bodies limp. The strange part was the rescuers didn't see anything. They didn't see any of the ropes. They didn't see any of the bodies hanging from the trees. They didn't see any of that. But the university students said, "We have our cameras. We have our recordings. We have proof." When the rescuers checked the camera, nothing was there. When they played the recording, nothing. There was no frames, no damaged files, just blank and silence. All you heard in the recording were the crickets and their stepping and their steps on the leaves. This can't be. The university students were in disbelief, their voices still trembling from the fear. The rescue team kind of just laughed, but it was a nervous laugh because they knew what they were saying was true. They've heard the stories. That's why they go in there and rescue. This forest will never reveal itself. Just silence. Thick leaves, tall, beautiful green trees. The university students were lucky to have gotten out of there alive, even if it was without any proof. Memories were all they had. And maybe this was a way of the forest protecting itself. Every survivor has the same story. From 1978 to 2003, there were 1,177 cases officially recorded inside the forest. Some bodies still hanging from the trees, and scattered bones all over the place. And it didn't stop there. Till this day, the tragedies continue. In 2010 alone, 247 people entered the forest to end their lives. 54 of them never walked out. Survivors give very similar stories of their experience inside the forest. They say, "The moment I stepped inside, I felt something weird, a pressure that makes you feel like you have no choice but to give in." Back in the 1960s, a famous Japanese writer by the name of Matsumoto published a novel called Tower of Wave. In this novel, the protagonist chose to end his life right there in Aokighara Jukai. And at first it was just fiction, but then a woman was found in the forest, and next to her was the book Tower of Waves. Maybe coincidence? Maybe not. Today, Aokighara Jukai is maintained like a tourist attraction with a trail, clear signs, and even a rope to keep those on the path and to keep them from straying. Some people who have visited the forest say they do feel something strange. There's no birds chirping, and it is very quiet. But who knows? What do you think? Do you believe that Aokighara Jukai carries this darkness? Would you enter the forest? Or do you think it's all just someone's imagination? People do go here when they're at the bottom of the bottom, when they're in a state of depression, of sadness. So maybe it could be their imagination, but there have been lots of stories, and everyone's story is fairly similar. So who knows? Let me know what you think. That is the end of tonight's episode. Feel free to comment below. I always like to interact with you guys. And also don't forget to subscribe, hit the little bell so you're always notified of new episodes. Have a safe night. I hope you sleep well. Good night.